Hi, in this video we're going to be writing some code to do client-side form validation using JavaScript only, and our own JavaScript without any frameworks or libraries. So this is a mock-up form for signing up for a social media platform account. So our JavaScript is going to validate all fields, making sure that none of the fields is empty, making sure that the names contain only letters and no numbers. The password is of a certain length that we can specify whenever we want, and the password needs to contain a set of characters that is completely customizable, as you will see later. And it checks as well that the passwords match and the email is a valid email address. And then after all of this, it allows us to submit it and gives us a welcome panel. So let me give it a go to demonstrate to you how it works. So if I go to first name, and if I go away from that, it says that you must not leave it empty. So if I put like John 1 as well, it says it must contain only letters. So I put John, now it's valid. I put Doe here, and I've now set it like that the password needs to have at least one letter and one number. So if I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it will complain that the character has to be at least 6 characters long, which is what I set it to now. If I put 6, it will say it has to contain a letter as well. If I put A, now it's valid. So if I put now here 1 through 6, again it's going to say passwords don't match because they don't actually match. If I add the A, now they do match. And now I go to email, which is the simplest part, and I do jane@email.com, and now it's a valid email. So if I click sign up, it loads and it says sign up successful, welcome to Social Ape, John. I gave Jane because the picture of the woman made me think of Jane instead of John, but you get the vibe. So let's actually start making this form. Okay, so here on my desktop, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it valid form. I'm going to open that with VS Code. And I'm going to create an index.html. And with Emmet, I'm going to do doc tab, and it will scaffold this for me. I'm going to do the title of the page will be sign up wall social ape, because that's the name of our website apparently. And we're going to be using Materialize CSS, which is a CSS library that implements Google material design standards. So you just click on get started and get these two, both the CSS and the JavaScript, and let's paste them up here, and then let's take the JavaScript and put it at the bottom of the page. Just get rid of this comment and this as well. So at the start of the body, we're going to have a container to push everything to the middle. And at the top of the container, we're going to do the header one, which just says sign up. And here we're going to have a row, so dot row. And here we're going to have our form. And this will not take an action, but we'll take a class of column. And since it's going to take half the width, is going to be S6 because there's 16 units, just like in a Bootstrap if you use that, which is like call SM6 or something. Now we're going to give it an ID, so ID of my form. And before I can put anything in the form, I'm going to add the other component, the other side of this, which is the image. So let's put that in a div, so .call.s6, and we'll put image, and I'm gonna bring in this image of this woman on her phone. Why not? Because she's on her phone, it's social media, it makes sense. Alright, so I'm gonna get rid of this old thing, and we're gonna actually do some inline styling here, which is apparently an international crime. I can't be bothered to create a CSS file just to style this. So let's do width of 100% so it doesn't become bigger than the actual div itself, and we're gonna give it a border radius just to make it look more satisfactory. So a border radius of 6 pixels, and I'm gonna actually give it an opacity opacity of, actually let me wrap the text, of 0.85 so it doesn't distract too much attention away from the actual form itself. Yeah, okay, so let's start with our form. The first field will be the name field. So actually we're gonna put this in a row as well. we're gonna further divide this row into other rows because we need another nested layout thing. So I'm gonna have a dot input field dot column dot s6 to take half, and this is gonna be our name. So it's gonna have a label, and it's gonna be for the first name, and it will say first name. And I'm gonna have an input, and I believe this won't take a class. Yeah, it won't take a class. It will be a type text, and it will have a name attribute, which I'll explain why we need later, which is first name in this case, and then it will have an ID so that we can use it. So first name like this, lower camel case, and then actually not yet. So let's just let's just leave these 3 fields for now. We're gonna add another field later, but if I add it now, it's gonna be a bit confusing. So we'll do a span.helper text, and we'll leave that empty. And I'll explain this later as well. So let's copy the whole thing. And so this is half, and then the other half would be the last name. So this will say, let's actually select both these. So Control D, select and Control D, last name, and select this and Control D and do last name. And yeah, that span stays empty. And then here we're going to do another row, which will have the password and the confirm password. So the first one will be a label for password, and it will say password, and we'll have an input, and it will be of type password, and it will have a name of password. I know, right? With capital P. And it will have an ID of, you guessed it right, password. And we're gonna have a span.helper text. Oops. Sorry about the typos. It's kind of hard to talk and type at the same time, especially if you're a newbie like me at this. And wait, what did I do? Yeah, I made a mistake. All of this should be inside of a div with a input field, so that Materialize CSS will know that this is an input field and style it accordingly. And column and S6, and I saved that and Prettier did all of that, by the way, if you're wondering why auto formatted. Okay, so let's paste that, and let's Control D here. Let's actually change all of them to password, and then oh no, actually we just need to change this. So confirm password like this, and then paste it here. No, actually no, in the ID, and then here will be confirm password separated like this, and Pascal case, and here as well confirm password, and everything is fine. So now we have the other field, so here, and a row, and we're gonna have a div.input field.column.s12. It's gonna take the whole width, and this will be our email. So label for email, and we'll say email, and then we'll have an input of type email, and the name will be email with a capital E, and the ID will be lowercase email. Let's close that, and we're gonna have another span.helper text, and it's gonna be empty. And now we need our submit button. So we're gonna have a button dot it's gonna have the class of btn, and then btn waves dash effect, which will give it the waves effect thing that Google Material Design has, or Materialize CSS, or both. And we're gonna give it waves light. Now you're gonna give it colon submit to give it a type of submit. Wait, I messed that up. The colon should be attached to the thing. Whoa. Okay, I didn't know that this interaction existed. Sorry about that. Let me just remove that. And then just give type. I was trying to do too much. Apparently Emmett sometimes doesn't like when we're trying to be smart asses. Alright, so sign up, and I believe our form is done. So let's save, and I'm gonna run a command in this directory called live server. You can actually install the the extension, or if you have the npm package, you just run live server. You can actually just open this with the browser and it will be the same. This is hot reload rather. So if I change anything here or in a script, it will automatically detect that and run again. Okay, so this is our form. Everything behaves fine. Obviously nothing is validating now, but there's a problem now. If I click sign up, no, actually wait, if I do this, why isn't this validating? There should be like the HTML5 validation email of type email. This button is inside the form. Oh, there we go. I don't know why that took some time. Okay, so we want to get rid of that behavior. So we want to attach to form. We want to give it this no validate thing, directive or attribute or whatever, so that the HTML5 thing validation doesn't apply, and it doesn't now. It just submits. Obviously, we're going to change this later. It's not going to have these variables here. So let's start creating the actual script. So let's create a script.js, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in all our inputs. So let's put a comment here saying input fields, and let's start bringing them. So const first name will be document, document, okay, I can't type, dot get element by ID, and the ID will be first name. And let's actually just copy this and paste this 4 times because we need the rest of them. So the second one will be, let's select control D. So last name, and then we need what do we need? Password, and we need confirm password with a capital P. And we need email, and we need our actual form itself, the form. So const form document dot get element by ID my form, like this. And I'm gonna set the green and red of the validation colors. So let's do validation colors that Materialize CSS uses, so that I don't have to actually put the code each time. I'll just declare them here as variable and use them. So the green, so const green equals, and this will be hash 4CAF50. And then we need the red, so const red equals hash F44336. Alright, let me make sure I got those right. Okay, I got those right. Alright, so first thing is we're gonna be validating this, the first name. So let's do that. So function, not const. I'm not gonna use arrow functions because I don't think there's a necessity for it here. It doesn't simplify the syntax or anything. We're not going to be doing a lot of like callbacks or anything where using the term function makes the code look ugly. So I'm just going to use traditional syntax. Validate first name, and it won't take anything. And so let's put our steps as comments. What we're going to do now for this field is that we're going to check if it's empty. And if it's empty, we return. We don't check for anything else. We don't check whether it has only letters or not, because that's illogical. Because if we do that, it's less performant, and we might put an error where saying like, oh, this doesn't have any letters, when it actually doesn't have anything, which doesn't make sense. The user would think that we don't have a brain. Okay, so first thing is that check if is empty, and then second thing we're going to do is that check if it has only letters. Okay, so here I'm gonna do if, and I'm gonna use a function that we haven't created yet. So if check if empty, and we're gonna pass the whole field itself, first name, and we're not gonna pass the value, and I'm gonna explain why in a moment. And if it is empty, then just return, don't check anything else. So let's create this function here. So function, I'm gonna paste that check if empty, and that takes the field. And what it does is it's gonna use another function as well. So we're gonna do if is empty, and don't worry, we're gonna create this as well, and we're gonna pass this field dot value dot trim function, because if we do a space and we go here, this should be considered empty, and it should raise an error. Because so now if we do this, each string we pass is going to trim it from the sides. It's going to remove the extra white space. So if it is empty, then so set field invalid, and return, what do we return here? Return true. Yeah, return true because it's empty, so not false. And then else we do something else, and else we set it to valid. So set field valid, and these are to-dos, we're going to do them in a second, and return false because it's not empty, so return false. Let's create this is empty function. So function is empty takes a value, and then if that value is equal to an empty string, then return true. And then here we just do return false, which is kind of the equivalent of the else here, because if this is false, then yeah, just return this. You get the vibe. Okay, so here, so this function is created now. Now we need to handle the logic here, setting the field invalid. Now what I can do here, I can actually write the code and then actually later make this code into a function, because we're going to need it somewhere else. But I don't want to make this tutorial too long, so I'm just going to make functions. Bear with me if you get confused, it's going to clarify itself in a second. So what I'm going to do here in the check if it's empty, so if this check is actually correct and it's empty, we're going to set it to invalid. We're going to use this function set invalid, and this is going to take a field, the whole field itself. Yeah, the field, yeah, we're still in the function. I was thinking I'm gonna pass it first name, but no, this is another function. So, and it's gonna take an error message, because if it invalidates it, it makes this red, and it shows us an error message. And this is where our empty span is. It's empty right now because there's no validation messages. Okay, so that span will be now red, and it will show an error message if it's invalidated. And here let's do backticks, so we can do a template string, and let's pass this a $, curly braces to pass it a variable, field.name, and this is an empty check, so let's say must not be empty. And if you understand the logic here, we get the field, no matter what field we're verifying, if it's first name or last name or whatever, and if it's empty, we just say the name of that field, which is why we added this attribute of name here. The name of that field, so let's say first name or last name or whatever, must not be empty, and it's going to show that error. And then return true. Otherwise, set it to valid. We're going to use this function set valid, which takes the field, and that's it. It doesn't have an error message because there is no error. It's valid. So let's create these set valid and set invalid functions. Let's copy this set invalid, and let's create it. So function set invalid, which takes a field and the message, which is the error message. And what it does is that it takes the field.class name. It takes the field and gives it a class name of invalid, which now materialize CSS is going to make red for us. And then what we're going to do now is that we need to access this span. We need to access this span and put text into it, which is the error, and make it red as well. So what we're going to do is I on purpose put the span after the input, I mean, it's good practice to put the span after the input and not the label, obviously. But yeah, now what we're going to do is that we're going to take, because we have access to this field, what we're going to do is just access the next element on the DOM, which is the span all the time. After all the inputs, there's a span, and then get that and put the message and the color in it. So let's do that. So field.next element sibling dot inner HTML, so we can set its text now to the message, to this error message. And we need as well to do field dot next element sibling dot style dot color, and this will be red because there's an error. Now let's copy this, all of this, and paste it, and this is gonna be set valid. So let's rename that. We could type this, but I think it's faster to just copy and paste like this. We're going to set the class to valid, and we're going to set the message to empty because it might actually have already a message, so we need to reset it. And let's set this to green. Actually, I don't think we need to set it to green anymore. Yeah, because it doesn't have a message. But anyways, let's just set it to green. You know what, I'm gonna experiment with this. Let's comment this out and see later if we need it. Okay, so here we're validating our thing. So if it's empty, then this validation happens. Now we need to check if it has letters, if it has only letters. So what we're gonna do, so if we pass this and we get here, that means there is a string. So we need to evaluate whether that string has only letters or it has numbers or squigglies, like, I don't know, some special characters, someone put an email instead of a name, whatever. So let's do that. So if, I'm going to use a function that we haven't created as well, check if only letters. And if you can't tell from the name, I bet you can tell. So first name takes the field, and if that's the case, we return. And then if it's not the case, then we just return true. That means this is valid. Oh, actually no, if this is not, if it doesn't have only letters, then we return. Okay, let's create this function. Let's copy that, remove the space, and let's do function check if only letters, which takes this field. And then here what we're gonna do is that we're gonna use a regular expression and test against it. And if you don't know what regular expressions, this is the whole other topic. I suggest you like research about it, but it's basically some sort of expression pattern that tells us whether the string has certain characters or has a certain pattern. So let's do, I'm gonna type this out. So slash caret sign, which is shift number 6 in QWERTY keyboards. Open this thingy, these square brackets, and then do lowercase a dash z, uppercase a dash uppercase z, and then, or z if you're American, space plus $, slash, and then dot test. So this is our regular expression and not text test. So we test against this, and we test the field dot value. So if it does, so this test thing, if it returns true, that means the characters in this are only these characters, some from A to Z lowercase, from A to Z uppercase. So if there's anything else in this string, this will fail and return false. So if it doesn't return true, if it does return true, that means it's valid. So let's set it to valid. Set valid field, and then we return, return true. Else set invalid, we pass it the field and we pass it an error message, so backticks, and let's pass it the field dot name, and this will say must contain only letters, and we return false. By the way, we're setting, so what we are doing here, we check if it has if it's empty. So if it's not empty, we actually do set it valid before checking here, and then if it doesn't have, if it has something other than letters, we set it to invalid. So it's actually sometimes being set to green and then it's being set to red, but because this is executed so fast, you don't see that. When you get here, both validations are executed and it's red instantly, so you don't see that green pop up. Okay, so what's next? We need to validate. Actually, let's check if this is working. Let's save. Let's check if it's working. Alright, so we have a first name. If we don't type anything, we go away. It doesn't validate. And why is that? Oh yeah, because, of course, we haven't given our input field this function. We need to do something here. Where's our first name? So in our first name, we need to give another attribute called onFocus. Wait, what did I type? onFocus out, which this executes when we're focused, when we focus the input, which means when we do this, and then when we do this, this is focus out. So we're only validating when the user goes to another input field or like this goes away. So this is out of focus. Then we validate. We don't want to validate each time someone types something because that's actually taxing. If they're from a slow device or something, that's not good to do. So let's do validate. We're gonna give it the function that we just created. So validate first name. Let me make sure I spelled that correctly. Okay. And then we're gonna do the same for all our fields. So let's copy this and go to the input, give that here. So to the input, I mean the last name input, and give it validate last name. And then let's go to the password here, give it validate password. So validate password, which of course we haven't created yet, but we will in a second. And here this is validate confirm password. So confirm password, and be careful with this, guys. This is lower camel case. So here we give it validate email. So validate email. Okay, so now it should work. Let's save this. Now if we highlight or focus this and we go out of focus, it still doesn't work. Interesting. Validate first name. Did I misspell something? Oh, silly me. I didn't include the script. I didn't include our JavaScript file. Script.js. Of course. Always the silly errors. So if we go away, it says field first name must not be empty. And if we type a normal name, it validates it. And if we go again to ruin it and type 1, it says first name must contain only letters. Brilliant. So let's do the rest of the field. So let's do now last name. It's still saying validate last name. Oh yeah, because we haven't made that. Okay, so let's actually, this is going to be exactly the same. So let's copy this. Let's do validate last name. Let's just control D this. Last name. Actually, this is going to be lowercase l, and then let's go again. Okay, let's close this. And yeah, last name is being validated. If we give it some numbers, it's not valid. Only letters, it's valid. Brilliant. Okay, let's start actually validating the password. Okay, so let's create here. Okay, let's separate these. These are utility functions, and these are the validators. So validators. Okay, here we need function validate password, and it won't take anything because we already have it up here. So let's see what we check first, if it's not empty. So password. Well, do I need to put this comment? I don't. Let's just do like this. So check if empty. Yeah, I didn't want to do the same comment over and over again. You guys get it by this point. So check if empty, and this will take the password, and if it's empty, return. And then actually it's good to put comments. Okay, so empty check Okay, these are the only comments I'm putting for the rest of the video. I don't want to make it too long. So now here we check the length of the password. So let's say password, okay, must be in certain length. I don't want to type any values. You guys might change the values. Or of certain length. Grammatically speaking, that's the correct terminology. So if not meet length, which is a function that we're going to create, which will take a field, and in this case it's the password, so and minimum length and a maximum length. So here we want to let's set it to 6 and 100. We don't want password longer than 100 characters or shorter than 6 characters. Return, and then here we're gonna check password against our character set, and of course this is a to do. Return true. This we haven't done yet, so I'm gonna leave this empty space so that we can do it. And let's actually write this meet length function. Okay, so in the under the utility functions here we do function. What am I forgetting? Meet length, and this takes field and minimum length and the maximum length. And this is simple. It's just gonna check if field dot value, which is the value that we typed in, that the user typed, dot length of the string is bigger or equal minimum length, and field dot value dot length is smaller than max length, then in this case this password meets our criterion for length. So let's set valid this field, which field, and then let's return true. Return true. Else if, because there's gonna be another case as well here, field dot value dot length. I want to separate these because we can do what we can do. We can say else. We will just say, oh, the password must be between 6 and 100, but it will never be more than 100. So let's just separate these cases. Most cases it will be too short. So let's do them separately and give different messages for each case. So field.value.length is lesser than minimum length, and this is good practice for programming. Your most probable case that will happen in an if statement chain goes first, because it's better for performance. I come from a games programming background, so performance is really important. But obviously in this case it's not. It's a tiny bit of JavaScript being executed on a browser. So invalid, set invalid, and we want to set this field that we have invalid, and we want to give it an error message, which will have the field dot name, and we'll say must be at least, and we're gonna put as well another variable here, min length characters long. In this case it's 6, so it will have this error message. Oops, put a semicolon and then return false, and then else, because there's no other, the only left option or case is that it's actually longer. So set invalid field dot value, no, just field, and the message will be, I'm getting ahead of myself, the message will be, we'll give it the variable with the backticks, remember, field dot name must be longer, wait, is it longer? Shorter. Shorter I hope it's not longer than 100 characters. Shorter than maximum length characters. Must be a shorter than 100 characters long. That doesn't make sense. Shorter than 100 characters. You get the vibe. Okay, so, and oh, I forgot, we return, of course, we return false. And then just in case, return false. Wait, we'll never reach this block. Yeah, we'll never reach, I mean, even VS Code is telling me we'll never reach this. Okay, so this is fine. Meets length is done. So if we go back to our validate password, where's our validate password? Here. So this is okay. It's gonna check if it's empty, and this is okay now because we've written it. It's gonna check between 6 and 100, and if you guys want to change it to 8, you can change it. It's up to you. I'm actually just gonna put it at 4 because we're gonna be testing this a lot, and I don't want to type too many things. Okay, so here we need to check. This is the big fish. We need to check if it meets a certain criteria, and I'm gonna write a set of criterions. And so first one would be if you require the password to at least have some letters. This is the base level of security, just some letters, you know. Okay, so this will say A. And then the second case, I'm gonna write them like this. The second case, when you require them to have at least one letter and one number. So A, and then what is it? Let's say A1, which will signify a letter and a number. And the third case will be, and I'll explain why I put them in different cases like this. When they require you, which is really annoying, I hate it. When they require you, like, at least one uppercase, one lowercase, and a number, which is this, uppercase A, lowercase a, and 1. And then the fourth case, which is, if you want to be obnoxious to your users, you can ask them a lowercase, uppercase, a lowercase, a number, and a squiggly, or I mean a special character. I don't know why I call them squigglies. They look like squigglies to me. Okay, so if not contains characters, and we give it the password, because we're validating the password, and we're gonna give it one of these cases. So I put it this way so it will be dynamic for you guys if you want to have all the cases, and if you want to change it or whatever, or whichever one you want to do. So let's pass it 1 right now. I just wanted to have some letters, okay? Okay, so 1, and then let's do return if it doesn't contain this character. I mean, the naming of this function is not the best, but let's just do with it for now. So let's actually create this function. Contains characters. So function contains characters, and it takes a field, and it takes that code or case or whatever. I don't know why, for me code sounds cool. Code. Okay, so we're gonna declare a regular expression pattern. So let regular expression, regex, short for regular expression, and we're gonna do a switch case, a switch thingy. So switch code. And if you don't know what a switch is that it takes a variable which signifies which block of this switch is going to be executed, and then, for example, if we pass it 1, it's going to do something. If we pass it 2, it's going to do something else, etc. It has a default case. Let's do default, and by the way, here is going to be a colon if you're not familiar with the syntax of a switch. It's gonna return false, the default case, and then we're gonna have case 1, which, oops, I made that mistake, colon, case 1, this is only letters, or at least a letter, and a regular expression. I'm gonna start grabbing the regular expressions from this paste bin that I've created for you guys to grab them. Did some research online and found these, and I'm gonna link as well this cool website that you can test your regular expressions against, called regex101.com. I'll demonstrate it for a second. So this is the regular expression for at least one letter, one number. So if we put our regular expression here, it says that the regular expression is valid, so we start testing against it. If we put only letters, it says it doesn't match your thing, it doesn't match the string, your string doesn't satisfy this regular expression. And if you put some numbers, and it says, hey, match. It matches your expression. So we test whether this expression is valid or not. Let me close that. And let me grab the only letters one. And here, this is our regular expression. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna create a function, another one. So function, this function will test against a regular expression. So match with regular expression, regex, takes the regular expression itself and the field, the error message, or just message, why not? Why be too expressive? So if field dot value dot match regex, if it matches this regular expression, that means this field is valid. So what we do is that we set this field to valid, set valid field, and we return true. And oops, else it's invalid. So set invalid, and our field and the error message, we actually pass that, we don't write it here, we'll write it upstairs. And return false. And we go here, where's our switch? Yeah, here. What we do now is we create this error message and we give it to this function. So match with regular expression, and we give it the regular expression that we just created here, declared here, and assigned a value here to here. So regular expression, our field is the field that we pass to this function from here, and our message will be must contain at least one letter. Okay, so but the problem here, if we just call this function, it's gonna set it to invalid, but we want this to return a value, so that this function here, where are we using it? Let me select that. We are using it in the password. So we want this to return a value. So what we can do is that we can do if this is true, return true. But what we can do, since we put here return, we can just return this function. So which returns the result returned from here. So this returns it to this, and this returns it to this, and we get the value upstairs. So return that. And let's actually just copy this, or let's not copy, actually the copy in here will be useless. Okay, screw copy and let's just type it. Case 2, this is letters and numbers, at least one letter and one number, and numbers, and we're gonna have our regular expression for that is, let's grab it from here. So at least one letter and one number, it's here, and here again. Did I say this? I'm gonna put this in the description for you guys to grab. Probably said it, but why not say it again? So we're gonna return match with regular expression. I hope I didn't typo anything. I hate typos when I'm recording. Okay, so, and they only happen when I'm recording. Must contain at least one letter and one number. Okay, so we need another case. So case 3, here we have so one uppercase and one lowercase. So uppercase, lowercase, and number. Regex equals, let's grab that. So this one, the third one uppercase, oops, let's grab with the slashes, and here we do return match with regex field, and the error message will be must contain at least one uppercase, one lowercase, and one number. One uppercase, one lowercase, letters, letter. I don't know. You can think more about this, what's appropriate to write, and write it. Okay, so case 3, or case 4 rather, case 4, which is the most annoying. Uppercase, lowercase, number, and special character. And we're gonna return match with reg. Why am I typing the whole thing? I could just type enter. regex field, and this will say must contain, oh boy, let's just copy this. one letter, one number, or one uppercase, one letter, one number, and one special character for your security. Okay, I need to wrap these. Alright, so we've handled all the cases. Let's go up here where we validate our password. Where's that? So here. So now this is actually gonna work. So if it does not contain, so we'll put 1 here, so we're just testing for letters, right? So this should validate the password, it should work, and let's test it. And where is it? Here. Okay, so if we go to password and we go away, password must not be empty, brilliant. If we type only 3, because we set the minimum, did we? 4, yeah. If we type only 4, it says must be at least 4. If we type exactly 4, I actually typed 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will say must contain at least 1 letter, and I'll type an A, and it's gonna be happy now. And if I type only A's, oh, okay, interesting, why is it valid? Case 1. Okay, silly me. I actually gave it the case 1, which requires only letters. Okay, let's test the other cases. So case 2, which requires letters and numbers. So we go here, we go away, must not be empty. I'm gonna put AAA111 is gonna be happy. If I remove those last 3 111s and put AAA, it will be, yeah, 1 letter, 1 number. Let's quickly, let's type the most obnoxious one, number 4. I didn't save, and let's do, I'm gonna do AAAAA 1111. It's gonna be like, oh, it shouldn't have been happy. Why is it happy? Number 4, regex. Oh, we didn't declare our regex here. Regex equals this one right here, the 4th one. And let's go again. So AAAA 11, and then it's not happy, and even if I put uppercase, it's not happy, and now I put an @ symbol. Now it's happy. Cool. Now let's do the confirm password. Alright, so let's confirm our user's password. Validate password, underneath validate password, I'm gonna do validate confirm password. So function validate confirm password, and here what we need to do is that we don't need to validate this the same way we validate this. What we need to do here, we need to check if password is valid. If password is invalid, we don't even need to check if they're the same or not, because we need to satisfy this first. So if password is invalid and we come here and we type the same invalid thing, it will say, oh, your password needs to be valid first. And then when that's valid, we check, we check that if it's the same. I don't know why I brain farted there. If it's the same, and if it's the same, we validate. I don't think we need to check if it's empty. Let me just check if the password is empty. So let's do, is valid. So we will do if password dot class name equals or does not equal valid. In that case, the password is not validated. Yes, is not validated yet, or is not valid. So we need to set this invalid. So this would be when someone clicked. So when they have clicked here and then they unfocused, focused out of it, it checks if this is valid or not. So set invalid and takes confirm password, this one right here, and we give it an error message of password is not, or actually password, let's just say password must be valid, which refers to the password and not confirm password. So, and we just return, and then we need to now check if they're similar, if they're the same, if they're identical, if they match. Okay, so if they match, how do we check that? We do if password dot value does not equal confirm password dot value, quite straightforward, set invalid, and we invalidate confirm password. We don't invalidate password because it could be valid, so we do passwords must match, oh wow, match, wow, that's impressive. That's like stuttering but with typing. Okay, return. Sorry if you have a stutter, I don't intend to be insensitive. Else set valid, confirm password. Alright, so we return true, just in case we get here. Alright, so if it survives all of these checks, that means it's valid, and we just set it to valid. Okay, so let's see if this is working. We go to password, and of course it must not be empty. Oh, let me change the case to 1. Oh, by the way, we could, if you want the password to have any characters, as long as it's like just a certain length, you could just comment this out, and I will for now. So our only criterion would just be from 4 to 100. And by the way, if you want me to test if it's when it's more than 100, let's do that. And it says, oh, it must be shorter than 100. That will never happen. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 meets the criterion, and if I do 1, 2, 3, 4 here, it's valid. And if I don't type anything, passwords must match. And if this is invalid, and then I do something here, password must be valid. Brilliant. Okay, let's go back. Let's now validate the email, which is the easiest bit. So let's validate email. Function validate email, and this will check if it's empty. So if check if empty, email, if it's empty, return, just return. And we're actually gonna add another case for checking against email regular expression pattern. So contains characters, and we're gonna pass our email, and we're gonna pass case 5, which we haven't created yet. Return, and then return true if it survives these checks, which it should if they want to sign up to our amazing social media website. I mean, it's called Social Ape. Why wouldn't you? Alright, let's do case 5. Let's comment say an email pattern or regex, and our regex will be this last one. Alright, so let's grab this, let's go back, paste it, and now let's return the result of the match with regular expression. And we'll take our regular expression, our field, and the message will be must be a valid email address. Alright, let's save and actually let's close these two. We don't need them anymore. Let's do something that's not a valid email. So yeah, it says must be a valid email, and if it doesn't have anything, it says it must not be empty. And if it's actually a valid email, so john@email.com, we click sign up, we go through. So actually, if we don't click sign up, it still validates it. So if I go away, it's now valid. But now what we need to do, we need to handle when the form is submitted, and we need to not let this happen, because obviously this is a major security leak issue. So you do ABC here and you sign up, you can see the passwords here, and that's not, obviously that's really bad. So let's fix that. So I'll do this actually at the top. So here, before the validators actually, let's do form. Let's actually put a comment here saying handle form, and we need to attach an event to this. We need to listen to an event of type submit. So we do add event listener type submit. So when this form is submitted, we want to do the following. So function which takes an event, and now we need to handle what we do with this event. So first thing we need to do is we need to prevent default behavior, which is what you saw, putting all those parameters in the link. So event.prevent default. And now we need to do an if statement, and we need to check if all our fields are valid. So if validate, so first name, and validate last name. Remember, these return boolean values, and if they don't return anything, that means they're not true, so this still works. So, and now validate password, and validate confirm password, and validate email. Let's save so that it just formats. Actually, need to open a code block here, save, so it formats it properly. And now we need to get the, before we do anything, we need to get the user's name, so that we can use it later and display it in a panel and say welcome user. And then, so let's do const name equals first name dot value, and let's get because what we want to do now is we want to get our container, and then show loading bar here, and then show a welcome panel. So we want to add stuff to our container, so let's get that container. So const container equals document dot query selector, and let's grab our div dot container. We always almost always have one container in a page. If you don't, if you have multiple ones, add an ID to one and use grab it by the ID. So const loader, we'll do the loading bar thing now. So let's create actually, so let's do document dot create element, and this will be a div. We're gonna use this thing right here, CSS, actually in components. So preloader, we're gonna use this indeterminate loader thing. So it's a div with class progress, and inside of it a div with a class indeterminate. So this is our div, this is the main div, so let's give it the class. So loader dot class name equals progress, and we need the div that's inside it, so let's do another one. Const loading bar equals document dot create not attribute element. Oops, what is that? Create element, and this will be another div, and we'll do loading bar dot class name equals what was that? Indeterminate, yeah, indeterminate, like this. And now we need to put this inside of this. So what we need to do is that loading bar dot append child, and let's append no, actually loader dot append child, loader dot append child, and we append it loading bar because loader is the parent. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna do something that mimics asynchronous code, and I'll explain in a second. Let's do set timeout, and this will take a function and a value in milliseconds. Let's do 1 second. So in milliseconds it's 1000, and this function will now, so here we've created this loader thing, right? We need to show the bar, and then after 1 second show the welcome panel. Alright, let me do that. So const loader div. Now we can't use this div because this is not added into the DOM. Wait, actually we didn't add it to the DOM. So container dot append child and give it this loader. So now the loader is added to the container, and now we need to fetch it. We can't use the same because this is different. So let's do loader div equals document dot query selector, and let's get div dot progress. Again, assuming there's only one in the page, and let's create this panel that we're going to show. Document dot create element, and this will be a div, and panel dot class name equals I think it's card panel. Yeah, card. Whoops, what did I click? Card panel, and we'll give it a class of green so that it looks green, so it has a color of green. It's green. Document create. We're gonna create the text inside it, and this will be span. So create element span, and then we need to add text to the span. So let's do text dot append child, and here we need to create this text. So document dot create node text node, and this will say welcome, no, sign up successful, welcome to social ape. Actually these need to be backticks because it's a template string. We need to use the name here. So let's do let's put the name variable here, and yeah, that's done. So this creates the span and adds that to it. So let's do panel dot append child, and let's append the text to the panel, and let's do container dot replace child, and this takes the new one and then the old one. So the new one is this panel that we just created, and the old one is the loading div, so the loader div, the loading bar. And yeah, so this is it for the reason why I did this set timeout thing to mimic what we call asynchronous code is that in a real life scenario you're going to use asynchronous code here to talk to the server or whatever backend you're using to log in this user. And what you would do generally will be a promise or an async await. So in this promise, before you start to you send this data to the server, you set it to the loading bar, and then when the promise is fulfilled, then you change the loading bar to the welcome panel. So during that downtime it will show the loading bar, but here there's no server, so we just mimic it using set timeout, and we give it 1 second. And what we do here, we create that bar, we add it to the container, and then after 1 second we show that welcome bar. So let's see if this is working, and let's fill out our form. Otherwise it won't go through. And wait, actually let me refresh just to show you that this behavior won't happen. So John Doe, password will be A123456, A123456, and the email will be john@email.com. Everything is valid. Sign up, we get the loading bar, and there we go. After 1 second we get the this. Let's make this text white because it has a better contrast with the green color. So let's do text dot class name equals white text. Save that. Oh, we have to fill the form again. John Doe, I don't know, 1 2 3 4 5 6, yeah. And then let's do John. You can write some other data, it doesn't matter. And now the text is white, it looks better. So yeah, this is it, guys. This is our form, and it's working fine. Everything is being validated as we focus out of that field. So I want to go over something quickly before I finish the video. Why it's important to do client-side validation is that it's recommended to do both client-side and server-side. Of course, at least server-side. But for me personally, I like to do client-side validation because sometimes you'll be working with a server where you don't control what you get as output. Maybe you don't control the errors that you get or whatever. So you want to do client-side validation just as a second line of defense. I will put all the links to the regular expressions and Reg 101, whatever, everything is in the code as well. I'll put it in a GitHub repository and put it in the description down below. Please, if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe, it means a lot to me, and let me know if you liked something, and I hope you were not intimidated by this video being this long. Usually you would actually use other libraries like Validator, for example, to do this, but it's really good that you understand what's actually happening behind the scene before you use any framework or library. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll hope to see you soon. Bye.